Good morning. It's Marty the JavaScript party. It's 8:39 already, so I start work at 9, so I do not have very much time for a video this morning. Um, but I figured I'd get started with this video as I was kind of setting up my screens and all that and getting ready. Um, it is almost the very end of August. So that means we are right on the verge of having worked on this application for 9 months. And it's shocking to me how little I have to show for it. Um, Basically, this is sort of the second run at trying to build an application that would would kind of let you sort of experiment and set up animations with ThreeJS. Uh, I kind of chose this application, this sort of subject matter for various reasons. Probably the number one reason is I've never worked professionally in ThreeJS, and things get a little weird, at least here in the United States, when it comes to working on things that you um, in the same subject, not subject matter, but the same technologies that that your job was at. Like I remember working at this one place where this guy had built some sort of technology. It was always very hush hush. There was a couple. One year, everybody got these massive bonuses because it was a kind of company. They were a really cool company in that they gave out like more bonuses than they made profit. I know it's weird, but okay. So this is up and running. Let me get that started. And the deal was that they here you go, girl. Um, they had they weren't a profitable company. They weren't supposed to be. They were like a subsidiary to another company, which was like a multi-billion-dollar company, which was then a subsisted or a deeply connected to another company, which everybody. I don't think there's probably less than almost everybody in the world has heard of the name of this company. I'm not going to say their name, but it's this massive company. So it's like kind of three layers down, and this company kind of collected a lot of information, and then that information it collected was incredibly valuable to the top company. So in general, they weren't really in it for the profit, but so one year though, everybody got like six-figure bonuses, like from top to bottom. And I think my understanding was that year two things happened. One thing was apparently they won a lawsuit against China for stealing technology, and they gave all that lawsuit money to their employees, which was so cool. And the other thing is one of their previous employees had built some sort of software that ended up being worth a ton of money, and they got that software. And that's how it works here in the States. If you build something really cool and it happens to be in sort of the same sort of subject matter-ish as the company you worked for, they will probably win in court to get it. So I didn't want to have any of those issues. So that was probably the biggest. Then the second biggest is because I wouldn't be able to figure it out. Like I have another one, a voice API video series, and in that voice API, like I pretty much understand it from head to toe. I don't. There's no more challenges, not really, in it. But I've been working on banging my head against this for like 2 years, and it's still so much to learn. And I had built one before, and it was like really, really slow. I mean, it went really, really bad. I built some really cool stuff. It was really neat, but unfortunately, like it was very, very unmaintainable. It was a complete disaster. But that was last year. That was the 2024 effort. This is the 2025 effort. After 9 months last year, after 4 months, I had very cool visualizations that were like really, really neat. Like that I put, like one I actually put on LinkedIn, and everybody, like a bunch of people were like, "Oh my God, you deserve an award for this. This is amazing. This is one of the best." It basically showed how like eclipses work, and you could see it and all that. And I mean, people were just blown away. But we're not doing anything like that in this yet. And it's because I want this thing to be maintainable. So basically, what we have been doing is we are trying to implement editing. So we implemented create. So I'm going to create something. We implemented read. So we're clearly reading it. And then we implemented delete. So if you go into this view, you can see we have a delete button. If you click it, it gets deleted. And so now we're working on update. And update is always obviously going to be the hardest. Like if you think about it at all, like modifying things is going to be much harder than like reading them or creating them. So I think that's obvious. Maybe not. But so in the process, as we move forward, I'm just carefully trying to make sure that I don't just sort of glide by anything. And one thing I know that I would actually probably need at some point, at least from a debugging and all that. But usually a lot of these things where you're like, oh, we kind of need this for debugging also is very, very useful for the end user to understand. So, because like in the last one I built, like you could pause it and you could see what all the values were. And what was really nice about that is you could kind of set up everything you wanted, and you kind of had a general idea of what you wanted to look at, and then you could move a time thing, and then you could be like freeze it right where you wanted, and you could get the exact thing with all the exact shadowing and everything, because it's hard to like it's hard to like guess exactly what the perfect spot for a light's going to be versus the perfect spot. So you could just animate like the thing that you're wondering about, and then just drag it back and forth, and it gets closer and farther. You'd be like, okay, yeah, I like that shadow. Okay, oh, I like it. You could say, I don't know exactly how high I want this, and you could animate it from the bottom up, and you could just see exactly what you wanted. So the actual value is pretty valuable. Also, being able to see the difference between what you kind of expect something to be and what's actually being shown could help big time with debugging. So we kind of went through the process and settled on in this ST area. And if I could go back in time, I would definitely rename ST to space and animation. So if you look in our services, what happens is you have, let's see, and then, yeah, so in our services, we have an ST, we have a 3, which I think is named properly. I don't know what's in UI. I completely forgot what that's all about. And animations probably should have been time. So this is everything that cares about time, and this is everything that cares about space. So it would be kind of cool to name that time and that space. But anyways, we named it ST, which is like our stuff, and animations, which is about animation, which is technically our stuff too. But and I don't think this is bad enough to do it. But as we were digging in, I was like, oh, okay, we need to publish. Nothing needs to be going directly to any of these things. Anything that we want to expose outside of the ST suite, ST area, ST section, should go through the publisher. So only things are published throughout here. It's just going to make it a lot easier to know what you're accessing, and it makes it easier on the consuming side to know where you're getting stuff from. Like, am I looking at what's coming from 3? Am I looking at what's coming from whatever? But anyway, so I was like, well, we really do need a 3 one so we can show the actual aspect ratio. And we just sort of ran into aspect ratio because at the very, very top of the hierarchy, and this is something at the very end of last year I wasn't aware of, and just kind of shows that the code didn't quite help. The architecture of the code didn't help with understanding the architecture of the visualizations. But at the very top of the hierarchy is something called a renderer, and the renderer is what knows how to draw things, and it takes all these different pieces and puts them together, and it draws them. And then right below that are 2 things. A renderer accepts 2 things, and I think we can probably look in our renderer here and see, just sort of validate that. So when we create a renderer, see, here's where we create a renderer. We get this. Oh, okay, so this is just saying that it is a renderer. Render, create renderer. So it creates a new ThreeJS renderer. Okay, so then there's a point where, and this is kind of cool, but there's a point where a renderer takes two items, is my understanding. One is a scene, which is what describes everything that's inside of it, and the other is a oh, and I think that's all happening in the animation now that I think about it. And then the other is a camera. So like camera is way at the top of the hierarchy. Can, if you could just keep following it down to meshes, and inside of meshes you can get it down into like uh, materials, and it just keeps going. So I don't know exactly how tall the actual full blown hierarchy is, but it's probably literally like 40, 50, maybe 100 layers deep of different things that get deeper and deeper and deeper in there. And it's a pretty big tree underneath. Well, right at the top is the renderer, and then right under the renderer is a camera and um, a um, and the scene. And then so the camera accepts, I believe it's four things. Maybe therefore the four requires four things, and one of those things is aspect ratio. And I believe that the way ThreeJS is set up, it was sort of designed for fixed things. So like it was probably designed like for like TVs, like where you know the aspect ratio, maybe those billboards where they have stuff where like things that have a fixed aspect ratio, where the aspect ratio doesn't change. But that is not the case in this scenario, because in this scenario, this is an aspect ratio of 1, which we can't really see. This is an aspect ratio of 1, and then this is an aspect ratio of 1.57, which is this width divided by that height. So it's sort of the very first property that we ran into, that we wandered into, that needs to be dynamic. And it needs to be dynamic in like ways that are not like driven by the user. Like it's driven by the user that we move through these things, but they don't type in the number. They don't specify exactly what it is. So it's a tricky one. It's tricky for various reasons. Probably the biggest reason is because ThreeJS, they really didn't optimize their system to have dynamic aspect ratios, because it probably didn't make sense when the ThreeJS system was being built, would be my guess. But anyways, so we came up with like, hey, I need to know what the aspect ratio is, and um, so we said, oh, okay, so we'll publish that. So whatever, ST is the one who decides, who has in the ST section, which would be the space section, right? So if I named it space in this space section, it's the one that decides how aspect ratios get calculated on our side, on the side that is, and then that is for us. And then there's a 3 side that's for ThreeJS. And so it would be good to know what the ThreeJS was. But so in ST, we came across the idea of having a publisher. So all information that leaves this section would be listened to from, if it's like, oh, I want to know what's in ST, we should listen to the publisher. Now, I think we're already doing animations, and the animations that we are already doing animations, because you can see that this is animated. When animations sort of matures, however it's figuring out, whatever it's figuring out, it's going to need to get that information via the publisher. So right now we're sort of short-circuiting, because a publisher didn't exist when we sort of set up animations. So that's that. And then next time we circle around and we're working on animations, I might actually rename it time, if it's not that big of a deal. Because I think renaming ST space might be a big deal. It may not be, though. might be something worth doing. But anyway, so I created a publish, and I was like, well, I kind of want my publish to work just like my ST publish, and I do want it to be very distinct, um, because I want when I'm coding it. So right now, the way we're talking at like 30,000 feet, and talking about these things like as if they were like individual, um, like buildings. Like, okay, so this is our ST building, and we're going to publish things out of this building, and anybody outside the building is going to use this information. Anybody inside the building can go get the direct information from within the building, but it can't just go. But once we're coding, down in the weeds coding, now we got to kind of look at all these things as like individual contributors. And when we're in the individual contributor mindset, it's so much easier if you have like your naming and all that sort of indicates what information you're working with. So we're kind of bouncing back and forth between those two sort of mindsets. We're building things from an architectural perspective, but we're considering what the developer experience is going to be when we're down at the low levels. Um, and that's something that, like a lot of people who are very architecturally minded struggle with. And then the people who are really, really good at working at the developer experience level generally struggle with architecture. And a lot of times you'll just build out a bunch of stuff in places and everyone will be like, well, why is this there? This makes no sense. And I'm actually dealing with that at work right now. So I would say my boss is really, really, really great at architecture. Like that's where he spent most of his time. I'm really, really great at developer experience. And so I built out a really, really effective solution that we desperately need, but it's architecturally unsound. So now we're going to work together and get that resolved, because honestly, that is his gift, right? That's his strength, is that he builds really great architectures. Sometimes it can be a little tricky getting it to work. I build really, really good things at work. Sometimes my architectures are kind of screwy. So we're kind of going to work together and get that worked out today, which is going to be fun. Um, it's going to be hard because it actually literally hurts my head to do that. But so we really could sort of invent this again. And it is, in general, a bad idea to copy and paste stuff, but I do want them to work the same, but I want them to be different. Um, and that's just because I just don't want to deal with the abstraction of like a general publisher that publishes things and all that. I would rather each one of these have their own publisher, so it's easier to reason about when I'm at the bottom level. So let's go ahead and look in this publisher service. And so one thing I have is I remember one architectural decision I made was that I want all of these properties to have their own dictionary. That is definitely going to lead to problems, because there's probably going to end up being thousands of properties. So as we start to scale this out, we're probably going to have to break these into their own little sort of almost identical things, or maybe we can create some sort of abstraction that they can use. But I like the idea that I have the name of the actual thing I care about identified, right? So this could be some sort of number dictionary or something like that, abstraction, but I'm going to make it just uh, that. Now I wonder if maybe it does make sense to make the type a number dictionary. But see, I think I think with TypeScript I can extend, or I can, what is the right word? Um, so like I could take, so let me go to my TypeScript. Okay, so go to the definition. See, this is the natural place to run into this. So I have dictionaries, and this is my dictionary. But I like the fact that it's named for the one. but I think I would want this to be defined at a higher level as like a base type that is an ID that is a number, a key that's a number with a value that's a number. So I don't know how you do that, and I think this is sort of a. And honestly, those words are all coming out because I spent like an hour with my boss yesterday, and he was talking about base classes and composition versus inheritance and things like that. Um, so I don't know exactly what to do with this. So I'm going to go to ChatGPT. So the thing is I want a base number dictionary. And then as I create the different kinds of dictionaries, them to um, I want them to all use everything that is a key that's a number and a value that's a number to use that base. So I have this TS interface, and I am going to have others that are like it. So I think what I've just did is I've created a question, a generic object-oriented question. I have this interface and I have others that are going to be like it. I have decided, I didn't even create a question. I just created an object, a scenario. So I'm going to put this in here, and then my expectation is that ChatGPT is going to tell me about the subject in general. Oh man, I gotta go. Few good options. Oh, I like that. Okay, so record, but see the thing is I'm gonna have other kinds like with a, well, so record string. Oh, okay, so I do like that too. So we have this dict number T. Oh, see, I don't like this. I think this is very. Actually, I do like this. I hated this before, kind of like I used to hate ternaries because it was hard to understand. But now that I kind of understand the way this works together. All right. So, anyways, it is 9:02, so I'm 2 minutes late to work. Gotta go. Bye. Happy coding. Bye.